Welcome to the fourth and final week of Natural Hair Fest 2021. I'm Salome Sallehy, your host and founder and president at Sugar Wax, and we are in the final stretch of the summit. It's been quite a ride learning about ingredients, trends, hair culture, and the innovation that's been happening in the hair industry to bring better and safer products to us all. Although this heightened awareness about health seems to be very new right now, there have been many long-time advocates of clean and natural hair products that have been blazing through this path for years. My guest today, Ylorie Taylor, has been at the forefront of clean hair care as vice president at Eden Body Works for the past 7 years. This brand, with products for hair and body care, was founded by a 13-year-old and has stood the test of time. More than 15 years later, her products are being sold worldwide and setting a new and attainable standard for clean hair products. Stay tuned for my chat with Ylorie Taylor as we talk about the changing landscape of better hair products. Hey guys, and welcome back to Natural Hair Fest. Today's guest is Ylorie Taylor, who is the VP at Eden Body Works. And this brand is really interesting to me. Not only are they affordable luxury, which is something that it's not a very big category, but it was started by a 13-year-old. So they take a very interesting approach to ingredients, and we're going to be talking about that. But what I love about Eden Body Works is if you are the CVS, like drugstore brand hair repertoire, and you're looking to transition into something more natural, I feel like this is such a good stepping stone. So I would love to welcome Ylorie. How are you doing?
I'm great, Salome. I mean, you just did an amazing commercial for us. Come on, come on. Snap, snap, snap. We love it.
That wasn't the intention, but we're here to shed light on the whole spectrum of natural. And you've actually been in the natural product space for more than 7 years. I would love to hear from you about how you define natural at Eden Body Works, and how has that changed over recent years?
So I think it's important. The brand is actually approaching year 17. So we've been in business for a decade, almost 2 decades. Wow, that's so phenomenal to say in this day and age with sustainability. And natural for us, from the inception of the brand, the founder, Jasmine Lawrence, her whole idea of natural was ingredient based. Now, we all know that that space has taken on a new narrative as we've evolved, and we've seen natural from a woman of color or women of color perspective really evolve into the texture of the hair, as well as the ingredients, as well as just avoiding harsh or potentially harmful ingredients and things like that. So that evolution, I think, is now a texture story in our world.
Interesting. I love that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure.
How
So
has
if
that
you're a woman of
changed
color,
over,
oh,
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like when I
okay.
say elaborate, can you talk about how, like, what are some of the things from recent years that have contributed to that evolution?
Oh, sure. So I think we cannot overlook the power of social media, right? So even when you tell your story today as a brand, it's important for us to not only do it. We used to just have commercials or print or magazines. Now we have in hand, really, right? We're mobile, as people say. So in your hand, you have the ability to tell your entire brand story. Who are you? Who do you target? What are you marketing? What are you selling? And I think from that perspective, we said, we have these amazing natural products. There are no sulfates, no parabens, no harsh ingredients in these products. And then there was a community of women, probably recently, so maybe in the last decade, who said, I'm going to abandon the things that are harmful to me, to my body, including my hair. We've taken a stronger hold on our health. So we now are, using those same parameters around our beauty products, and women with curly or textured hair, as we like to say in the space too. But if you have a more curly hair, so my hair is actually curly straightened today, but if you have that type of texture, we were not the target demo at some point, and we really made these communities, and they grew online, right, through meetups. We used to use that word before we said Instagram, right? And and we had these communities, these meetups, and we would get online and say, hey, what are you using? How are you tackling frizz? How are you getting out of the house in less than an hour with curly hair? How are you straightening your curly hair? So I think as the conversation continued, it helped brands evolve and really change their story, their perspective, and even some brands add to the mix of products that they were offering those women.
Yeah. As someone who grew up with like curly slash frizzy hair, I can definitely attest to how much the availability of products for my hair type has changed in recent years. Being on the brand side and also with the scope of, what's happening in the space from your perspective, what are some of the drivers of that change?
So I
Social
think,
media is obviously a big one,
sure,
but like what
sure.
what are the other things? Are consumers demanding it? Are manufacturers getting like more with it with the natural ingredients? Like what's happening behind the scenes?
I think it's a global recognition. We are recognizing our individuality, and women with curly hair have a voice, and it's being amplified via social media. I think retailers have paid attention to consumers and consumer demands and consumer requests. So now, when you go in a store, if enough people ask the beauty counter, what about this brand? The beauty manager starts to pay attention. So there's a difference. If there's a popularity of a certain product regionally, a lot of the buyers are now so sophisticated that they've gone to conferences and trade shows, and regionally will see some awareness and say, we've got to put this in our stores, get it on our shelves. So I think, you know, they're not only dedicating the space and sharing the space with small indie startup brands who used to just be online are now seeing that. But there's Amazon. It's a combination of availability and visibility. And social media, we could talk about that all day, but availability is there too. Someone like who looks like me shops at this store, and how can I increase her basket? I can put more things in there that she already has in her home or perhaps wants in her home. And again, we can't ignore that power, from TikTok challenges to visuals on Instagram to even YouTube. We cannot ignore, it is still the number 2 platform behind Google, where women and men and all people go to find out, how do I do this? And so we are still beauty. Beauty is still a how-to DIY game. So, if you want to play in a game, you got to put pieces on the table. So,
I love that. Thank you. Now, at Eden Body Works, you take a two ingredient approach to product labeling. And even though there might be other ingredients in the product, can you talk a little bit about like how you approach your ingredients and maybe even share some examples of the synergistic effect of ingredients that you guys use? Because you've obviously been doing this for some time. So I feel like there's some learnings to be had.
there are lots of learnings. From the beginning, Jasmine decided that she would focus on natural ingredients. And so she was a little bit of a she did some things in her kitchen, right? So she did kitchen concoctions, for lack of a. She was a kitchen mixtress. So she decided to try different oils and ingredients together. Now we know everything doesn't mix well together, so we do have chemists on staff at this point. Um, and we really said, let's address hair concerns and let's do it with ingredients that are either familiar to the customer or that we know have powerful benefits to them, that we're able to better tell the story. So we're a big storytelling brand. We feel like we have an amazing founding story, aspirational, inspirational founder, but we also have a quality efficacy story right behind the ingredients. All of our collections have a 2 ingredient naming nomenclature about them. So peppermint tea tree, so minty, menthol, you're gonna feel it in your scalp and feel it in your hair, but then it's gonna be antiseptic, antifungal because of the tea tree. And it addresses scalp concerns, which is probably one of our top three concerns that we see from women as we survey our consumers and get data back is, and we know healthy hair starts at the scalp, right? So if we're going to give you products, we're going to give you, you're familiar with tea tree, you're familiar with peppermint. So we're not introducing something totally different to you. And when you look on the labels of the products, you're going to see aloe and lavender and chamomile. So again, we're going to make sure, just like Breyer's ice cream, right? The natural piece is Breyer says, you can see it, it says sugar, it says milk. So we want you to have familiarity when you're reading the labels so that you can make better choices about your products. Coconut and shea butter go well together. I mean, coconut oil, come on, it's like the healer of all heals, right? And shea butter, we know, is an amazing moisturizer, just like coconut oil. So for that particular collection, it was all about maximizing moisture. We have products that are anti-breakage. So if you see breakage, we have color-friendly products because women do, hello, color their hair. So I think, we try to make sure that we're always meeting the consumer needs and some of their wants as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Over the course of the last year, COVID-19 has had a huge impact on bringing natural hairstyles to the forefront. And I'd love to get your perspective on, do you think that it's a heightened awareness about the possibility of like personal care products and the impact of health, or would you see this as like COVID life, or like life with COVID lifestyle um, nuances that have driven this natural hair desire to the forefront? What are your thoughts?
So I'm in marketing. So we believe there's always many different ways to spin a story. So I think this is a mix of factors that have impacted us during the pandemic. First one would be out of necessity. We just flat out shut down one day in March. And women everywhere couldn't do the salon, we couldn't go to the store. And we were like, wait, so we were forced to rely on friends, sister tribes, sister circles, the internet, mobile devices, and say, what am I going to do? How am I going to resurrect myself when outside does open again? We had no clue last year that we would be 12 plus months into being on a lockdown situation across the world, not just in the US. I'm in New York, so we're just starting to open up. Kudos to those who were able to do it earlier. We were just so heavily populated here. I think we couldn't risk it, right? And we were at the epicenter of it from the beginning. So again, I think that the pandemic and COVID, one, necessity. Two, some women were already DIY, very interested in change. And so when you shut me down, I have an opportunity to now look at my health habits, my beauty habits. My face can now get clearer. My skin can get better because I can drink water all day. I'm here at home, so I don't have to worry about the pollution that may affect my skin or eating out because I'm stressed from work and leaving work at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So I think we had time to really take inventory of our practices from a beauty perspective. And that beauty again starts head down, right? So we said, what's going on with my hair? Is it damaged? Is it time for a new look? I have 12 months now to figure out this new look. So I can big chop color it. I can do so many things. So I think COVID really put us in an environment to reevaluate and reinvest in ourselves. And again, because we're in beauty and we're in the hair space, it gave you an opportunity to really learn what works best because it's really trial and error. So,
Yeah, and thank you for touching on all of that. I think being like kind of closer to the light at the end of the tunnel, sometimes you don't look back, but you just totally painted a picture of what probably March to August was like for everybody. Um, what's your perspective on how the hair game is going to change for the remainder of 2021? Do you see any immediate changes coming, or how do you see it playing out?
I think we're going to continue to see explosive e commerce growth. We now have given people who may have had a little bit of anxiety, we've given them confidence to shop online. We've given them an alternative. I personally love going in the store. I love hearing the music while I'm shopping. I like talking to, the beauty specialist just to find out what's the latest and greatest that I might not want to get on the tips of my phone, right? I don't want to be so glued into my phone. I've had 12 months of that.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can overlook the power of e-commerce for brands who had to pivot and really build up that business and staff that business, right? I think it was an interesting dynamic for them to see a way to parallel revenues. For brands like us, we were already heavily invested in e-com, but because of social distancing, our shipping delays increased, right? So we focused more on customer service and better communication so that people would know USPS has picked it up, but honey, the postmaster, we don't control him. So we're hoping you get your product, in 7 to 15 days that you were used to getting in 3 to 5 days. And to give us some grace as brands, as businesses, that the world is not perfect. We have to socially distance, we have to stay safe, but we also want to service our customers. We want to grow our brands. We want to be more engaged. We want to build our community. I think that's all going to continue to happen. This growth and this pivot for business is to me just the beginning. It's almost like you're climbing up this ramp to see how many things have been impacted that we can now turn into positives for business. Now, it's unfortunate a lot of businesses went out of business, right? But those who were able to sustain have now found other ways to drive revenue and profitability and really connect with customers. And that's us included. We used to do blog posts once a month. Now we're like, maybe we should have done them a little bit more. When outside opens, we may readjust that. We picked up SMS marketing like right at the height of when the pandemic hit. And we realized that was a great tool for us for sales drivers. So again, I think businesses are learning ways by pivoting or through pivoting to continue to grow. Beauty's not going to go away. Come on, we've been looking at Mona Lisa for hundreds of years, and she's still just as stunning in the Louvre as she was probably when the painting first went up. So we still admire beauty. I
Absolutely.
think we've seen a lot more celebrities even get in the space since the pandemic, at least on my side of the game, I have. Um, we've seen a ton of investments in beauty. We've seen a lot of partnerships and collabs and mergers. So I feel like it is going to continue to be a mainstay.
Yeah, and thank you for touching on some of that. I think definitely the taking the I guess what you talked about. I love the way you framed it. I'm trying to paraphrase and I can't remember. But like some of those online shoppers that were nervous about the experience of shopping online have now just adapted. And I think as brands, especially um, our brands that are in retail as well as direct to consumer, just dealing with the logistical nightmare that COVID brought on. But then at the same time, you have this like Amazon culture. Everyone expects to get their products like 2 days later after putting in their. So I feel like there's definitely been a lot of learnings for brands and consumers. Um, Now, you have been on this. You guys have always at Eat and Body Works had this natural ingredient approach.
Mhm.
And natural ingredients have really, really changed. And the efficacy of natural products have really, really changed over the course of the last few years, many years. And you guys, I'm assuming, have changed with it. I would love to hear about some of the innovations that drove that change for you. What are some of the things that you're doing now that you've learned through on the science side that like you weren't necessarily practicing like 5 or 10 years ago or 15 years ago for that matter? I'd love to hear about some of the innovation.
So I think to Jasmine's credit, she always was about safe ingredients that weren't harmful or harsh to your hair and your skin because your scalp is just an extension of your skin. So I think because her brand, and I know 17 years doesn't sound like it's new, but it's still very new for, for a historical perspective. So I believe that we've always had that as a mainstay and a mission and a goal from the company. Now, how we do things are a little bit different because now we can't just buy ingredients because we're working on PETA and Bunny certifications for the company. So when you go through that process, you now have to have your suppliers and your manufacturers and everyone commit to, they're not animal testing. They're not using harsh. So it becomes a supply chain conversation. It's no longer just enough for you as a company to say it. you also have to make sure that people you do business with value your goals and your business model as well. So I think that was one thing for us that was a key learning, is to ask those questions, because we probably were just like, oh, we want to buy natural shea butter, and they give us a certification that is natural and we can validate it. But then we don't know, how did you harvest this? Did you test it? What are you doing with it in the background? So now we choose our partners and our suppliers more carefully as a brand. Innovation wise, there are so many new ingredients that pop up and have some sense of popularity. So even though we consider peppermint tea tree, coconut shea, and these are our two like hero collections, coconut oil exploded, right? And there's so many memes that says, coconut oil, there's a cure for that coconut oil, right? Coconut oil can cure everything.
Yeah.
So, but there are also people who fell in love with castor oil because it has a growth element to it. Or there are people who fell in love with jojoba and manoi because they understood its healing powers, its natural correlation to the skin. So for us, it's a constant study to make sure that we're not just introducing to introduce. We are not that type of company. Our innovation is derived with a purpose. So Eden Body Works comes from the Garden of Eden. So it is inspired by nature. The things that we're doing, we're trying to make sure we're as close to nature as possible. Now, if you talk about some of the biggest impacts in this space, we believe we were a pioneer in this natural space. So we've got some longevity and some history there. Aside from coconut oil and the memes, with Panacea, the cure all, I think we've seen some game changers. I don't always, people always say, how do you keep innovating? I'm like, sometimes you just want to be a game changer. You just want to change the game. You're not always about the innovation piece, because maybe it's not time to launch something new. Maybe it's time to change how we look at or how we play and look at the game. And in this case, I've seen allyships, partnerships, collaborations. I mean, let's talk about, when would you have ever seen a small Black owned, women led brand in Vogue, New York Times, Beauty Matter, Pop Sugar? You always see it in Essence, and Oprah gives us our accolades through her list all the time. Beyonce did a Black parade, and Good Morning America has been amazing at sharing, deals and steals with small owned brands. We were one of those featured early on in the pandemic. They were reaching out to help brands survive. And let me tell you, those allyships changed the perspective of the average American. It's no longer, Body Works is just for Black women. It is not just for women of color. It is to address hair concerns. I mean, Salome,
Yeah.
it's to address hair concerns of all women. And all of this grew out of movements, Black Lives Matter. And again, that support, that amplification, it really showed that we have to be committed to Americans and not just to races and genders, but all people of all types and textures. And that goes across beauty and so many other verticals in the space.
Thank you for touching on that. Because I guess that's something that we have so been in the epicenter of, that we haven't really thought about the impact. But just on the beauty side, like BLM movement really just like made everybody from like retailers, manufacturers, publishers, like everybody like open their eyes and take a look and really see the inequality in the space. And there's been so much cool stuff, so many acceleration programs that have been born out of that movement, that I don't know if when we were in it and like all the protests and everything were going on, I don't know if we saw this fallout being
No.
so positive. But thank you so much for touching on that. Um, Obviously, as a hair expert, I I would love to get some like one takeaway. What is the most important lesson that you have learned from your time in hair and you would like to share with our audience today? Just one easy thing that anyone can do.
It's a journey. Experiment, have fun. Your hair is like an accessory. There's no final destination. I think you'll have many stops along the way. You'll go short, you'll go long, you'll shave it off, you'll color it, you'll braid it, you'll wig it, you'll weave it. So many options.
Thank you. And you know, I've learned in this series and through some of these interviews, that's like the perfect conclusion because you know, your hair is really like a form of expression. And I've learned so many things in this series from people like you who are sharing like all of your learnings and, you know, really shedding light in an area that I thought, you know, I've been into natural products for years. So I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. No idea. No idea. There's been so many good learnings. I love that. And I think that's a great note to leave on. Just, you know, it's your hair. It's going to keep growing. Take good care of it, but really have fun with it.
Yeah. It's
Thank you.
like life. It's a journey. There's no final destination until it's over. So enjoy it.
I love that. It's a journey. Your hair is a journey. Thank you, Ylorie, for joining us. It's been such a delight chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. Please continue. We all need more of this in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And guys, I'll be sure to link Eden Body Works and social handles so you guys can keep up with this great brand. And I swear, why Laurie did not pay me to say this, but I've tried every kind of hair product just because I have a more difficult texture. And I could say for sure that if you are wanting to take some like baby steps and not be overwhelmed by a completely new user experience using more natural products, this is a great stepping stone. And I've tried some of the products and can I just show one?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This one, I just kept it handy because it's so brilliant. It's a foam conditioner, and I'm actually just gonna do it, guys. You could literally do this because my hair gets so dry, right? And then you could just like run it
Hmm.
into your hair, and the foam allows, look at that. Honestly, it's like giving me hydration. And yeah, I'm just loving that product. The foam allows the product to really like be like it's not stuck in one place, but really able to distribute throughout the hair. So
Yes.
thank you for that innovation because I had not had that before. And let me tell you, people say you could keep putting like conditioners in your hair when it's dry, but you know when you've like blown out your hair or you know you've styled it, you can't put conditioner in it. It's going to mess it up. But this one, as you can see, clearly doesn't. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. You guys will get all the links. Keep up with this great brand and keep journeying.
Keep journeying. Keep learning. I love that.